High school teachers of Reddit, what is the one thing that you want your students to know that you'd never tell them in person? I think what you learn in the other classes is mostly useless rubbish. The things you're supposed to do to learn it is boring and ineffective, and the way our schools are organized is archaic and not fit for humans, much less kids. Your parents are literally the worst part of my job. Yes, I put you in a group with the kid you have a crush on intentionally. I'm stuck here with you 180 days a year. I want to see some drama. Edit. I think this is my most upvoted comment. Glad my matchmaking could make some folks smile. Also, thanks for my first gold edit part 2 silver 2? No paparazzi, please. But seriously, thanks. Students teachers of Reddit, what's the best forgot to turn off the mic story during virtual learning? I had to defend my thesis over Zoom and many professors came into the call to watch. My thesis was about immune response in fish to parasites. One professor joined late and forgot to mute her mic and we got treated to this little gem. Mommy is learning about fish parasites, which is what you'll get if you don't stop peeing in the koi pond. Edit. Thanks for the gold. That's my first. Not really anything super weird. Was in a meeting with my class for the first day of school, and I had forgotten to mute myself. I then proceeded to start noisily baby talking my cat, who was in my lap at the time. Embarrassing. A girl's mom, who the fuck you on the computer for this early in the morning? And asking the same thing over and over. Teacher, I think your mic is on. Teachers of Reddit, what are some signs that a student is being abused or lives in a toxic environment? Writing prompts usually bring out some strange stuff. Also, behavior with peers. Unusual maturity. There's always a reason a kid is light years ahead of the other kids in that area. In high school, kids who don't ever seem to want to go home at the end of the day, who seem less happy act out before or after school holidays. My partner's mom is a teaching assistant in a classroom. She said one of the most worrying things she hears is, "Can I tell you a secret?" A lot of the time it's very innocent, but it always sets off alarm bells first. Apologizing a lot. Flinching when someone's hand is raised, being yelled at, or loud noises. Avoiding confrontation or eye contact, but that could also be something else. Willing to make a fool of themselves for attention. Acting out, etc. Edit. My heart goes out to all of you who've been through abuse and have to live with the consequences of it. I hope things get better and that everyone could heal and move forward. Teachers of Reddit, what is the most depressing thing a student has told you about their home life? My students were debating on what hurt the worst when being beaten by their parent. The whole conversation was disturbing to say the least, but one kid won when he mentioned the cord for the television. He even stood up and proved it by removing his shirt and showing the scars. Looked like Django. It went from students laughing to complete silence and then crying. I once had a student show up late every day for class in first period. I asked him after class that his tardiness is becoming his issue. He said he is doing the best he can. He has to help raise his younger siblings. He says his dad was an alcoholic and his mom lives in another state. He said he has to help his 3 younger siblings go to school and drop them off because his father is usually passed out drunk. Teachers of Reddit, what was the best excuse for being late that turned out to be true? I had a student whose father had died and had not done any homework or prep for the geography class. From what I heard, the teacher scolded him for not doing so, but the student didn't want to say anything, presumably sensitive issue, so his best friend shouted at the teacher, "Don't you have any shame? His father died last night," and the teacher said, "I don't care." There was an audible gasp and I was in the next room. Needless to say, the teacher is no longer employed here. My auto teacher let me practice removing and adding the tires on his vehicle. The next morning, it was about 20 minutes into first period and no sign of him. He comes running into the classroom out of breath and his hair is all messed up. He points at me and says, "What is a torque wrench used for?" I respond with, "I don't know." He says, "I know you don't know." Turns out one of his tires came off while driving down the highway. Teachers of Reddit, what's the funniest thing a student has ever said to you? I was an aide in an elementary school for years. Our 6th graders did a monthly news broadcast for the school, with current events and announcements. While they were working on it one afternoon, the subject of Las Vegas came up. One of the kids spoke up and said, "I've been there, well, not since I was born. That's where I was made." One day, we were working with probability and flipping plastic coins. They tend to get lost on the floor. A student found a plastic penny on the floor, held it up in the air and yelled, "Hey Mr. Always Shamo, I found half your salary." It hurt, but I couldn't help but laugh. Had a troublesome low-achieving student. Very difficult in class, very unmotivated academically. Then one day before class, he comes up to me and says, "Mr. Hutsuit Ralston, can I ask you a question about college?" I pleasantly surprised, so I told him, "Go ahead." Did you ever have a threesome in college? Teachers of Reddit, what's the weirdest thing a student answered to tell me a fun fact about yourself? I had a student tell me that sometimes his dad got drunk and asked his mom for things. As I was starting to tell him he didn't need to elaborate any further, he continued with "like soup," and he yells it like so up. It took every bit of restraint to not laugh. It's been years and years since that happened, but I still laugh when I think about it. Not a teacher, but this happened when I was 17 at school camp during a bonding exercise. Teacher: tell us 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself, and we have to guess the lie. Weird kid: I play PlayStation. I like Doritos, and I am an alcoholic. The teacher: the lie is you are an alcoholic. Weird kid: got you. I play Xbox. My god, the look on the teacher's face. Not a teacher, but I just did a first aid course. During introductions, say your name and 1 fact about yourself. Dude says proudly he once had over 300k of unpaid parking tickets. Teachers: what was the worst thing a substitute teacher did while you were gone? Back when I was a teacher, I had a sub decide my plans weren't good enough for her and went rogue. She decided to show my students videos of animals giving birth on YouTube. I taught English. I taught middle school math and English in the 90s, and the sub didn't know how to convert a decimal into a fraction and kept insisting that the students who did know how to do it were wrong. She also apparently didn't know how to pronounce 5 of our 20 vocabulary words and didn't know what half of them meant. Rearranged my room. Not in a moved student A way from student B and put her by student C way. In a move the giant rug over to the opposite corner of the room, and completely change the layout of student desks, and rearrange a bookshelf way. What did a teacher do that made you automatically gain respect for them? I had a physical education teacher who organized basketball, volleyball, handball and football tournaments, organized Olympic games for the local kids, and taught us dancing on weekends. On his own. Just for us kids, because we lived in a remote place without many activities and things going on. He was more than a simple teacher. I remember my 5th grade teacher had every student circle 1 book from the Scholastic Book Fair flyer. When the day came for the fair, if you didn't go to the library to purchase that book for yourself, she would buy it with her own money to make sure every student got to take a book home. I wouldn't have had any books of my own if it weren't for her. Not take my shit. I was a pretty decent writer in school, able to pop stuff out pretty quickly that was superficial but sounded good. The first time I had a teacher hand my work back pointing out that I managed to compellingly fail to say anything was sort of a slap in the face that I didn't realize I needed.